So it usually takes a few minutes to come up, but I hope that everybody can see that all right. Can you see
it's visible? Yes, it's visible already. It's perfect.
Okay, great. All right. So as I just discussed, we started with the resort, and later we bought some land, which we call Whitewater Lake. This is about 800 meters or so from the resort. And so I'll just go through. Okay, so now just to explain a little bit about us and how we came to be here. I'm from New Zealand, and my husband Søren is from Thailand. We got married 19 years ago, and as I think probably many of you, we're multicultural, and there's an issue: where are we going to live? What are we going to do? Originally, actually, I thought that we'd go back to New Zealand, and I even obtained residency for Søren and his two sons, and that was plan A. But I have a job which is working in Bangkok, and but I was a bit worried, how he would get along. Maybe he wouldn't like it. So we did have a plan B, which was, well, if he doesn't like it, and we come back to Thailand, we should have some land, and because I didn't really like to spend the rest of my life in a city, so we looked for some land, and we chose Chanthaburi because it's not too far from Bangkok. It's possible to come here on the weekends and still work. And also for me as a New Zealander, I like it because it's got some characteristics of New Zealand. It's got hills. It's close to the sea. And also my husband Søren is from Isan, and a lot of the vegetation and the plants are similar to Isan. So he's from Ubon Ratchathani. So that's why I say it's New Zealand and Thailand. But due to some situation with my work, the plan to go to New Zealand fell through. So then we adopted plan B, and we started building the resort. So this slide is about what made us start to buy the farm. And it's funny, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's some little thing in my life that then prompts a big move. And in this case, we had a barking deer mango, which in Thai is, I think, called Ton Pragop, on the border of our property next to our neighbors. And I really liked that tree. It had a lot of birds in it and squirrels, and it produced a fruit, which is sort of a little bit like an almond. And then the neighbors cut it down because it just happened to be 500 or half a meter on their side of the property. And I was quite upset about this. In fact, I cried, and my husband said, oh, well, it's their land. They can do whatever they want with it. And I got the idea, well, maybe we should buy some more land, and then we can do what we want with it. And so I had seen some land which was like a swamp. And this land, I don't know, I just went to have another look at it, and it was swamp, and it was long grass, and a couple of ponds, and that was about it, really. But for some reason, I fell in love with it and decided that we wanted to buy it. And but we didn't have any money, so I've actually flicked forward through to the next slide. So what, I was actually going to wave in my hand. I don't know if you can see it, if you can see me on the screen, but at that time we were heavily in debt with the resort to build the bungalows, and it seemed pretty impossible to buy this land. And but I was, I actually have, I was just showing, I had this book called Think and Grow Rich, which is like, okay, a pop psychology book. But the main point of it is if you really, really want something and you keep your mind on it, then, you can make it happen. But and so anyway, I was very determined that I wanted to buy this land. And at first my husband wouldn't even go and look at it, but thankfully when he did, he also had this feeling of falling in love with it. And we managed eventually to buy it by essentially borrowing money. But I had a house in New Zealand, and I used it as an ATM to keep borrowing and borrowing. And also, we were able to borrow some more money from our bank in Thailand. So because I knew from the old maps that it was called Whitewater Lake or Nong Nam Khao, and in fact the local village was called after it. It was Ban Nong Nam Khao, and our neighbours also told us a bit about it, and they said actually it used to be the reservoir for the village because it had natural water, spring water under the ground, and so. I was working in Bangkok at the time, and I said to my husband, oh, well, let's restore it to make it a lake. And little did I know, he hired this big, huge macro that we saw in the previous picture. And he dug and went around, and he dug very deeply. And in the end, spent nearly $1 million baht. So I had to use my house as an ATM quite a lot. So we did go even more heavily in debt. And but yeah, it's pretty nice. As you can see, we're very fortunate. We've got lots of water. And for those who are embarking on a new project like this, it's certainly worthwhile to dig as deep as you can in the beginning, because of course, over time it silts up. And so that was what we did. Now talking about what we had was the lake, which is, I called it like a bit of a wildlife sanctuary. We had the swamp, we had, so we had quite a lot of like just regrowing scrub on it. When we dug it out, we built up the, like a canal, you know, like the banks all around it, which gives us a walkway around it. And we also filled in some of the swampy areas, which is where we planted a few fruit trees. And also that area that we see, which you saw, which is the rice paddy and where we grow the peanuts, and some other vegetables during the like beans and corn in the dry season. Now, I think, as I said, that I'll go back. Our influences, where I'm aware of permaculture, and I'm not sure why that's in the way. I'm aware of permaculture, and I've read some of the literature. I haven't done a course myself, but I have an idea of the principles, a rough idea, not expert like most of you guys. But we were influenced by the former king of Thailand, Rama IX, and his concept of the sufficiency economy. And I especially like the fact that it's not just about a process or a system, it's about an attitude and about values, which is development based on reasonableness, moderation, and prudence. And the other big influence is Makichi Okada, nature farming, and he's Japanese, I think, as people will probably guess. And he was the inspiration for what people now know as effective microorganisms, and the use of that in farming. And he taught the idea of observe carefully and learn the laws and the wisdom of nature. So these were big influences on me, and also, to be honest, what works. Okay, so as promised, I would focus on a couple of projects. For about the first 10 years of having this land, I have to admit it was really largely a hobby project. So we had a few fruit trees, we grew a few things, like we had some fun. It was a nice place to go, but not, but very small. And we were spending most of our time in Bangkok. So we're quite limited really in what we could do. But after a certain period of time, after about 10 years, I realized that the resort was not really going to be the retirement plan I hoped, and it's not terribly profitable. In fact, runs at a loss. But by now, our staff had been with us all this time. We came to love them. They were quite reliant on us, so we needed another form of income. We had one area which was a rubber plantation, and so I had wanted to plant some fruit trees there for a while. But my husband said, we can't even look after what we've got now. But anyway, he started to spend more time here, and we started on this project. We actually began by cutting down 1/3 of the rubber trees, and we planted mangosteen mainly. because mangosteen, which grows well in this area, are pretty easy to look after. You don't need to do too much. They don't seem to have much problem with pests, and yeah, they grow easily. But my staff also planted 6 durian trees, and to our surprise, the durian trees did very, very well. And so we thought, oh, well, let's plant some more. So we cut down another 1/3 of the rubber trees and planted more durian trees, little durian trees. Now about 30 or 40 of these small trees. And the first year, so this was 4 years ago, the first year they all died. The second year they all died. Of the original 6 that we planted, we have 1 remaining. So my husband got a bit fed up with this, and he's like, oh, well, let's just scrub the durian. Let's just not do it. They're too difficult. But anyway, he was persuaded that we should have 1 more go. And actually, sorry, it was this time about 2 years ago that he started to spend more time here and paying more attention to the orchard. So this photo you can see here is 2 years ago. These are very small durian trees, and you can see the you know, the long grass. I've got now a dog and a cat coming up to me, and this is one of the. So we actually had some quite a lot of banana trees growing around, which we'd put in at the time when we planted the first lot of durian that died. And so we were able to use that and the long grass and a bit of straw as well, it looks like, from there to as shelter for the trees. Okay, so it's pretty. So then we actually decided to plant some more, and so we cut down the rest of the rubber trees, which were all the remaining 1/3 started falling down. So I think probably most people know rubber trees have very shallow roots, so we had to cut down the remainder of them, and we planted some more durian. So this here is the timeline: 2016, 30 mangosteen, 20 rambutan, 6 durian, 1 durian survived. 2017, 30 durian, all died. 2018, 30, all died. 2019, 40 durian, and most survived. So durian are very difficult compared with other trees. So I'm a big fan of rubber trees. People in this area, they all grow, while their trees are little, they grow bananas, usually grow bananas and papaya as shelter and to earn some extra money. And so the papaya are great, you know, for the food. But banana trees I find especially great in terms of what we can do with them and as food, as mulch, and so on. So we use the leaves, we use every part of the banana tree to add back to the soil. Having some trouble shifting to the next slide. So I had a momentary pause, so hopefully. All right, okay, so again, a little bit more about the banana trees, and everybody does this around here. And in fact, yeah, so I definitely recommend banana trees. We planted 3 kinds, Namwa, Glory Kai, and Glory Hom. I'm especially a fan of the Namwa, which are very, very hardy. It's pretty hard to kill them off. The bananas also, so that's actually the Glory Hom, the Cavendish bananas in the picture, and we that's my husband again, and we also use them to feed our cows, which they go crazy over. We have 3 cows, which are pets. We use them for grazing, keeping down some long grass. We use their manure, and just for fun, for company. And then, so this particular piece of land, we plant a lot of things around too as the shelter. So, and it, you know, it depends a lot what grows well. Some things do, some things don't. But here in this picture, the things which are doing very, very well are the holy basil, We also have lemongrass, pineapples, chilies, and a whole bunch of things. I'll come to a different. I'll come to a list, I think, later. Also in this land, this piece of land, which is about four rai, where the rubber plantation was. We've actually got a lot of different kinds of fruit. On the left, it's a form of cassava, which is manhanati. We feed the tops as foliage to the cows, and we also can eat the that part that she's holding up. That's my sister-in-law, and then flowers just for fun and nice. And on the right-hand side, it's we have trellises where we're growing passion fruit. Some other things we've got in this area on the left, it's black turmeric, which is a good health food, quite rare. The original tubers came from Ubon, and that's the flowers of the black turmeric. We can use it in tea, or I actually find it's good for anti-nausea. I think people probably know that ginger is good if you have nausea, and this one is even better. So that's good for that. In the middle, I think everybody can see that that's mulberry, and mulberry is also like great. I'm pretty much as much a fan of the mulberry as I am of the bananas. It doesn't provide a mulch, but our cows love the leaves, and then the fruit is very good, and they grow very, very, very well. They also provide a bit of shelter, small trees. So here's just a list of what we're growing: mangosteen, rambutan, longgong, durian, limes, kaffir limes, somjit, that's the little sour orange, cacao, mulberry, cassava, which is called manhanati, this particular one, pineapple, neem, galangal, Siamese cardamom, which is reohom, cardamom, ply, ginger, pueria, mirifica, peppercorns, chili, lemongrass, sweet basil, holy basil, hairy basil, wild pepper, pandanus, gotugola, turmeric, aloe vera, eggplants, peanuts, banana, papaya, chaploor, which is what I use to make mee and kam, okra, garcinia, kawa, chamoang, longan, and pomelo. That's what we have in this small area of about 4 rai. So you can grow a lot. As the trees grow bigger, some things might not do so well, but all of these we found grow well. Sharing with visitors, that middle one is the Pueria mirifica. My husband says he used to eat this as a boy in Isan when they're short of food as a substitute for rice. And that's just a photo of some of our guests from China who loves papaya. Okay, so 2020, after we cut down the last 1/3 of the rubber trees, we planted more durian trees, but this time, instead of the montong, which is so common in Chanthaburi, we decided to plant many different kinds. The main one we decided to plant was Musan King, which is high value and very popular in China, which is our big market, and grows well in Malaysia, but not many people are growing it now in Thailand. And then also we planted all these other different varieties. Chanthaburi, there's a couple of them, the golden Chanthaburi and Chanthaburi 9, which are new varieties that they've developed here in Chanthaburi. Others are from different parts. I just know Lin Lap Lay is from Uttaradit. I'm not sure where the other ones come from. I just happen to remember that that's native to Uttaradit. And so that was just over, well, that's just 1 year ago. Now, so I just want to show you this, how well the durian trees are growing, but also how variable they are. In this photo, that's just me and my staff a week or so ago, showing 2 trees that we planted at the same time 2 years ago. And one is on the right-hand side is really tall and thriving, and the one on the left-hand side is still not doing very well. So this is the variability of nature. They've had pretty similar treatment. I think a difference of the soil. My husband thinks it might be because the banana trees were too big and gave too much shade. But anyway, that's, working with nature, they're not uniform. Okay, here's just some photos of some other crops. On the bottom, there's the mangosteen and longgong. At the top, we're growing Amlaki, which is what is it called? Indian gooseberry. It's a herb, and it's used in Triphala, which is Ayurveda, which I'm quite interested in. And on the right, there's some cacao pods. We've only got about, at the moment, well, a couple of trees that are producing fruit in another part of the land, but we've planted quite a few in the understory of, because they don't mind the shade. Some trees don't mind the shade too much, but some like a lot of sun. The ones that don't mind the shade that I know of at this point are cacao and longgong. Okay, so I'm just showing this picture that this year was quite exciting because I had planted some durian from seeds. So you can see in the middle picture, that's actually the sprouts of the durian. And that was at the lake, but they didn't produce any fruit. The trees got big, but we actually used some fertilizer and some hormone to produce some fruit. And we got our first durian, which is what I'm holding in my lap there. On the right-hand side, it's the durian flower. And it actually did taste very good. I remember my sister-in-law said, oh, it'll never grow from seed, it won't produce fruit, but it did. And it did taste different, and it tasted really, really good. It's what variety? It's Ganyao. This is just showing some of the work from our volunteers. This couple cleared that all those weeds. We feed the weeds to the cows, and then that's after they're finished. That's the area where we have about 5 cacao seeds, cacao trees in the lake area. Okay, project 2. Transforming rocks and swamp. Now, we had an area which was just pretty scrubby and nothing would much grow there because it was the people who we bought the land off previously, they had actually scraped away all the soil and the topsoil. I think a lot of people do this and sold it. So it was lower than the neighbor's property and not productive at all. It was just like rock. They basically scraped away the soil right down to the rocks. And so in the rainy season, it would flood. And then actually what prompted me to actually think, we should do something with this, is that we had a court case over this land. We bought this land, which Whitewater Lake. Actually, it was 14 years ago, but we only got the title this month, 1st of July, because we had some legal problems. And I won't go into those details now, but it cost us a lot of money, with the legal fees and whatever. And I'm like, okay, I think we need to try and get something out of it. So what we did was back in during the dry season, maybe February or March, we hired a big macro, or I think people call it a backhoe, and we dug up the area. We dug a canal around it. We dug out a pond to be a bit deeper, and then like kind of created new soil, which was not going to flood and which hopefully will be nutritious. So it's a pretty big project. This area is about 4 or 5 rai, and we planted about 150 durian trees. Once again, a mixture of different types. So I was very interested in the soil. I think you can see the big digger there digging out one of the ponds, and we've got like a ditch around it, which is now filling up with water. And then on the right-hand side, so yeah, it was quite a big project, putting in all the irrigation. So yeah, transforming rocks and swamp. So I saved some of the soil, it was interesting soil. I think this area was volcanic, and but there's no topsoil, so it's quite a big project to build all of that up. So these are our staff. Well, while the resort's closed, they're working at our farm. So these are our 3 housekeepers and the sister-in-law, and they so fortunately they're all very capable. They've all got their own orchards, and they're very, very capable and good workers. And so they do a mixture right now. They work at the farm, and they also like keep the resort, the rooms clean, and because hopefully will open one day. We can't let things run down. Okay, so I'm just, this is just sharing a few of the things that we do with products. We don't do anything on a large scale, just for ourselves, to be honest, because I'm the one who does it, and I'm, you know, don't have time. So on the left, it's the cacao. On the middle, it's my ginger beer that I'm making, and where I add a lot of the herbs and the different kinds of gingers, lemongrass and galangal, etc., and to make a brew. And on the right is some soap. Now the soap actually uses some products from the farm, rice water, and from our own rice, which we ferment. The cacao, I've only got a very small amount, and so it's not an industrial operation. But I actually, to make it edible, what you have to do is ferment it and then roast it. And I ferment it in my ginger beer. It works quite well. Right, some other products on the left-hand side is herb whiskey, and I actually use now. I'm actually using wood and herbs from our own property. We used to buy a sort of an OTOP mix and mix it with rice whiskey and honey, but now I've actually, you know, looked into the medicinal properties of different plants that we've got here, and I make my own one. Middle, it's in the middle, chili, when we make powdered chili, which has become quite addictive. And on the other, I've actually been making some capsules to keep us safe during this time, which is made from neem. And at the little bottle there is some balm that we make with our ply, which is very, very good. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about EM. I'm not sure if people really know about EM. It's short for effective microorganisms. And just over 10 years ago, maybe 10 to 12 years ago, I did a course at APNAN in Chanthaburi, which is the Asia Pacific Nature Agricultural Network, I think. And this is like a Japanese NGO, which is followed from the person I mentioned before, and they offer courses where you can learn about using EM, effective microorganisms, which is, I guess, as I said, part of the biodynamics things, which enriches the soil and makes things good. I make lots of different brews, some mixed with vinegar and rice whiskey, some mixed with fruit and herbs. Some I make with our own rice and add that in, and then I also make some which I use to make the soap. So, and then I mix all this together, so it's pretty potent. Here I'm just talking about practical solutions. I watched the Food Web or the Soil Web seminar, which was held a couple of weeks ago, and they also talked about microorganisms and making teas and things like that, which stimulate that in the soil. And I think probably everybody here probably knows how important that is for the value of the soil. But they didn't seem to think you need, and they also talked about compost. So I'm just showing, you know, we actually have to trim huge amounts of compost. It's hard to get rice husks now. I actually had to buy some from Isan. And we mostly mix it by hand, but if we happen to be doing some work with a macro, here's a little one that we use to prepare and plant the trees. And so we mix up leaves. I make it using EM again. Usually the basic formula is rice husks, cow manure, chicken manure, and EM. And then, but we also might add leaves if we've got them, you know, which we have quite a few from the resort, which we can also use. On the right hand side is just an example of the durian, and this is like some of our big durian trees died, and the reason why was because they're subject to a lot of problems, and one of them is like a kind of jelly-like fungal attack which can actually kill the tree. But this is using lime, the pink lime that old people eat with betel nuts. And also I tried some copper sulfate, and actually this is our one first durian that's about 4 years old, not producing any fruit yet. And anyway, that did succeed in solving the fungal problem. Oh yeah, and this is just an aside really. When we first came here, we actually bought some other land before we bought the land for the resort, which is about 3.5 rai. And then when we bought the land where we built the resort, we just planted agar wood trees on it. And these are now 18 years old. But now we have the problem of we'd like to process it. It's a beautiful little plantation. I think we actually get some carbon credits from it now, but we would like to try and get some oil from it. But so anyway, that's just a photo. So that's just there. Anyway, so this is the last slide, is to say, so we're still a work in progress. And that's just a picture from our bridge looking over towards the land that we developed. So in conclusion, just here's some pictures. And I think what I'm trying to say in this slide is that, you know, it's not just about the land, it's not just about growing things, it's about culture, it's about people, and having, you know, a philosophy of what we're doing. And in our case, in grace, harmony, and beauty is like our motto. So that's what we try to do. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I think that's the last slide. Oh no, a few more. So yeah, so not to forget the people factor, which is so important. So there's some volunteers on the left-hand side. It's the daughter of our brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Chinese volunteers working there, bringing more banana trunks, great virtue. And animals, we think it's good to have animals, and by trying to maintain a good biodiversity, we have a lot of different insects and you know, frogs, etc. So this is where we are now. So the lake is beautiful, as you can see there, where that lady is sitting. She's one of our volunteers as well. That's just showing we still have a bit of swampland there, which is some habitat. And yeah, so there we are. That's going back to the beginning. Both of us a lot younger there, but a nice photo. All right, so thank you. That's the end. And now I would like to open it up.
Bronwen, you already have one question on the chat. And I think after such an amazing, you know, like presentation that is charged with so many things, hopefully you will have more people asking questions live or writing them down. So you
okay,
can,
that's great. Yes, I see the question. It's about the Reo-hom, Siamese cardamom. Now that one is, it's very fragrant, and there's actually a famous noodle dish here in Chanthaburi. I think kwai teow jan, and it's used in that. But I actually have also added it to my ginger beer, so it adds some extra fragrance and flavor to it. So
can you take the seeds then? Are you using the seeds or the fruits
actually,
to use?
For the hello.
Okay.
Actually, we don't harvest the cardamom seeds. We use the roots of both the cardamom and the Siamese cardamom. I've never seen any seeds on it, but the local people here like to eat the cardamom, the seeds, and we did go to visit. There's a farm which is being done according to Satikat Popiang, which is like a model farm, not too far from here, somewhere near Tamai, which is halfway between where I live and Anna lives. Olga lives, sorry. And they have like wonderful soil in Tamai because it's very volcanic. And he was growing, he was the one who recommended that you can grow things like, you know, he grows a lot of cardamom and pandanus, which he says, you know, helps to create a good environment for the trees, you know, and keep pests away. But they actually sell the roots of the cardamom, and they use that in cooking. But funnily enough, we're growing cardamom, but I've never seen the seeds. And this area, cardamom did grow wild. This one of my inspirations too is that this area is part of the spice trade. So actually, we are growing a lot of trees, which I'm not talking about today. We actually have a little grove, which I called our spice garden, and we have a lot of well, spice trees like cinnamon and camphor, and I planted nutmeg, but haven't seen a sign of them yet. And so and cardamom did grow naturally around here. peppercorns, so on. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Okay, Spencer's got a question. What is this? Yeah. Yeah, so Spencer is asking about the financial return. So we were lucky when we came here that land was still cheap, but unfortunately, if anyone wants to come and join us here, it's not cheap anymore. Back then it was, but it was still cheap, but it was still expensive compared with other parts of the country. When we came, it was, we bought the land for about 200,000 per rai. I think it was selling for about 20,000 in Isan at that time, but now it's more like 2 million per rai. So, but the thing is that is so profitable is certainly durian is profitable. That's why everybody around here who can is planting it, but we try and keep a mixture of it. So some of our neighbors who had the big investment, to be honest, was actually in the property and the buildings, and that's not profitable. but the lake, I suppose that would have been okay, would have paid for itself, you know, for the pleasure and value of doing it. But for the new area that we just invested in, I think that should certainly pay for itself unless there's a crash in the price, and of course that can happen. But as we say, we're followers of the sufficiency economy, and one of the very important aspects is that, you know, you don't just put all your eggs in one basket. So you actually have other things, and also you have some level of sufficiency and protection for yourself, even if you know, like we know, I think we all know at the moment how a lot of people are facing a really terrible time with the you know, the COVID situation, and they've lost their income and so on. But by doing this, and it's mostly been paid for, to be honest, by my salary for all this time and the borrowing that we did. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it can be. It can be.
Bronwen, you mentioned the self-sufficiency there, King Rama 9, and you know, the nature farming. But earlier, you also said that you have some elements of biodynamics. Can you talk about that? Like what?
Yeah.
Do you use
well, this is, I think what I mean by that is the idea of microorganisms, and also creating. Well, actually, I haven't formally studied biodynamics, but the main thing is the use of effective microorganisms. And I think what people are realizing and understanding is the importance of the fungi and all of the little things that go on underneath the earth, and what EM does. And you can make your own EM. You know, I actually do make my own as well, which they, I think, indigenous microorganisms, you know, from rice, and grow the molds on it, and then mix it with some molasses and water ferments, and that stimulates all of that to grow in the ground. I also make a brew with, funnily enough, with the cow manure, which is stir. And I know that Rudolf Steiner from biodynamics, he used to like bury the cow horn in the ground and put the cow manure in it. And I don't know, I just think this is quite similar. And also, of course, trying to create an ecosystem, so you're working with nature and not against it. One of I was thinking about telling you about, you know, pest control, because, you know, we do have pests. You know, well, I suppose you can call them pests. Some people might not. So caterpillars, grasshoppers, beetles, aphids. But the EM actually works pretty well at helping to control this. And because we have a variety, it's not out of control. And also in terms of the choice of what you're growing. One year I tried growing soybeans instead of peanuts in our field, and they were just demolished by caterpillars. So I just basically don't do it. But the peanuts and the rice seems to be fine. We don't have to use, you know, it's just a bit of EM and good soil. So I think that's what I mean by it. That's what I mean by biodynamics.
Just a point on insect control. There's a couple of methods that I've used. One is wood vinegar. I found that pretty effective. And the other method is if you can pick some of the little culprits off, squish them up, put them in a moolie with some water and spray it back on the plants, they disappear because they give off a message to other insects of the same breed, if you like, that this is not a good place to be. It's dangerous. So they disappear. I've done that several times. It works really well.
Well, that's actually, no, that's a very good idea. We actually produce wood vinegar as well. So I mix up a brew, I put everything in it, and when we do the spraying, in terms of the bugs, yeah, we could do that. And we don't. I actually remove them by mechanical means. And I was going to share. Anyway, I'll answer a question which nobody's asked, but I'll answer it anyway because it might be in your mind about the durian. Why did they die, and why are we successful now? And I think the main thing is attentiveness. That has, so you have to be careful with the watering. You have to, be attentive to it. You have to inspect and look after it. And that's one of the reasons why I like the nature farming. It's like being observant, being attentive. It's not just having a system, always going around, looking around. And up until now, I have to admit, Chris, I don't really have enough bugs that are going to make much difference.
Oh, well, I guess for the soybeans, you had enough.
Yeah, but I never grew them again because that's part of it as well. See what grows well. And so I don't fight against it. I don't really try growing things that don't do well.
Right. Okay. I was interested in your legal fight. We have also been in a legal fight over a piece of ground, and I thought 9 years was a long time. So you have my sympathy there, and we still aren't finished. And it just goes on and on and on. And the basic rule is depends on your connections and how deep your pockets are as to who wins, not your shall we say, fairness, if you like.
well, because we won, I think I would say, okay, we did have big pockets, but actually it went in the court. I think the court was very, very kind to what happened was that first of all, the land was, so I'll try not to drag it out too much. The land was tied up in the beginning because it was in the land, the land bank, and they couldn't sell it. And previously it was like, if you wait for 10 years, then they can. And then the 10 years, and then the guy who sold it to, so we didn't have a title in the beginning, but we were just waiting for this period. And then the guy who sold it to us died. And then his children, when the 10 years came up and it was now free, they just basically decided that they didn't want to give it to us. They just wanted us to give them more money. And so that's when we hired a lawyer. And they took this, the one of the three children, it was one who ended up fighting to the bitter end. She took it to three courts. We went to all three courts. And but I thought the court was very kind to her because they never charged her any costs. So she actually had her day in court, and her case was very weak. Her case was that it wasn't her father's signature on the document, but it was witnessed by a lawyer, and she produced no evidence to say it was not her father. So the court was very kind to her, and I think the court is quite favorable to the local people, at least here in Thailand. And
yeah, and if there's a phalang involved, you need really deep pockets.
Yeah, well, luckily I had them, so we got there. But there was no bribery. I can assure you of that. There was no trickery.
Well, in our case, it's not
Probably
so much bribery.
Best not to say if there was, since it's been recorded.
Yes. A question about your ponds digging. You said go as deep as you can. Now we're going to be creating a pond for fish and some swales. So I know kind of the size of swales, but when you say go as deep as you can, we went 3.5 meters deep on one pond, and it simply doesn't fill up at all. And any water that's in it just drains away. So, and obviously that depends on the soil. So what did you mean when you said go as deep as you can?
Well, actually, probably it all depends on the situation. But see, we had natural underground water. We had natural underground springs which come to the surface. So we had a very good water supply. And in fact, some of the local people actually, it's probably, don't take that too literally, because some of the local people, because we're coastal, it's coastal land, they have gone too deep and hit salt water and killed their trees. But if in our case, the main thing was because it silted up, it silts up, and then once you've done it, you can't really go back. You can't go back. So it really, that was really my point. But
so how deep did you go?
Oh yeah, it was quite a few meters. I can't remember. It was my husband who took care of that, but I think it was about 5 meters. But we did have an underground supply of water. So that was, but not everywhere. It was just like the one part is very deep, but if it's too shallow, then yeah, it will dry up and it will silt up gradually, of course, over time.
Thank you.
Hi, let me ask you a question, everyone. Now, after kind of like 10 years, of course, for the benefit of hindsight, let's say you're going to start all over again. Will you do anything differently compared to kind of like 10 years or 15 years ago? I mean, what's kind of advice to people who want to start fresh?
For me, probably not, because, like I said, I had a full-time job. It was like a hobby. It was fun. And so I probably wouldn't do anything differently about it for us, but it wasn't a big economic burden for me. There was at times, but I wasn't reliant on making the land productive quickly, if you see what I mean. But now that, we naturally do need to earn some money, because, I'm like, I have to find some alternative to my salary, which is, afforded us this ability all of these years. And I'm still working, but I have to plan for my retirement. And now we don't. And if we retired now, we wouldn't be able to keep on our staff. And but here in Chanthaburi and different places are different. So you will have to know like your local area, what grows well, and it's very beneficial here because local people, we have all of the the support, the infrastructure, and what we grow here is high value. So some of the people here, like for example, they might have 10 rye, they're earning 2 to 3 million baht a year, which is a very, very good income for a farmer.
But let's say someone want to start and with thinking about dependent on it's not a helping, right? He's thinking of it as like a career and develop a place for career. I mean, is it doable? Not many people is kind of lucky to have a salary to back up the things for 10 years, 15 years. Let's say a young person jump into it. I'm fed up with things. I want to do it as what you did. Is that doable?
Well, I think a lot of it is like choosing where you are, and yeah, I think it is doable, but maybe somebody else can answer that question better than me, but I certainly have been thinking about what I could say to young people, who don't, because it like, starting out and they don't have a big pot of money. That's why I did mention, like having, a lot of determination and having a dream, having a lot of determination and not, probably not giving up and and not being too easily discouraged, because I just wanted to share that we too have had our big problems along the way, the trees dying, the learning our way. So but yeah, I think a group like this should help, but I also think, as I say, thinking about where you are and what you can do. And I think I've certainly seen videos myself where people have produced a tremendous amount in quite a small area of land. And so it's a matter of, you do have to understand something about what might be useful in the market, what you can make, you know. I've thought about different things that might be useful. And I think Michael might have something to say that on his land, you were producing, bergamot and producing products from that. So I'm quite interested in products that you can use something for, not simply food. And I see that with one of the things that's happening with the COVID situation, that some countries are actually like reviving industries in herbal products and which can be used as medicines. And so I personally think that's an interesting area. And where we planted our new durian, we're trying to keep it simple because it's a bigger scale. And so we just can't afford to do, it's too much work on it, and our staff are growing older as well. But I did have tentatively planted some or bergamot. I know it's not very PC anymore, to the kaffir limes around it, because I think that's a very nice product that you can produce something else out of it. So that's an interest of mine. But I think everybody has to know their area. Have some idea of where you want to go and what might grow well there, and things that can be processed, and so I don't know. Other people, I think, probably can contribute to the answer to this question.
Before other contribute, I want to do the follow-up question about your marketing. Do you send any of your products directly to consumers?
Well, as I say, we probably, that's a good question. So we haven't been producing very much so far. So what, with the fruit that we've been producing so far, mostly we actually been sending it to Bangkok, and Saran's daughter, she sells it directly to the market. And but we actually just give it to her, so to help support her. So it's pretty small scale. But here in our area, we do actually have a lot of basically brokers come around and buy the products directly from the farmers. A lot of it actually goes directly to export, the high value ones. So brokers actually have bought, I guess it's not direct to the consumer, only the things that the daughter sells, they go directly to the consumer. But there's also the export market, because the brokers come around here and they basically just order the fruit off the trees, and they handle everything. They'll pick it and do the whole lot. It's quite a big industry here. And I think Michael was saying that he saw it's everybody, and people in different parts of the country are also growing, because it is very profitable, and so naturally people are looking at it, growing durian.
And other than fruit, you mentioned there are some of the things that you make, out of the plants that grow. Do you have plans to make it available?
Well, yeah. So that's an answer to Spencer's question. I think there would be certainly a possibility in that, and some of the products that we make, people like a lot, like my soap and the balm, and the Thai whiskey. But obviously, anything to do with alcohol is not. There's lots of rules and regulations. But because I've kind of been me and my husband been making them ourselves, we haven't been selling them. We just give them away. We sold some of the balm to guests. The soap, because it's just oils. It doesn't keep that well. So there's a lot that people have to consider if you're producing something for the market. It's quite a different proposition than if you're just doing it for your own use. So, but an energetic young person who's very good at social media, I'm sure can do very, very well. And the cacao is, I think, a very interesting product because there's lots and lots of things you can do with that. So that I think people have to find what grows well, what they can, and what might have a market. I mean, for me, I think apart from the fruit, you know, herbs and medicinals is very interesting. And there's obviously, it's in trend at the moment.
Yeah, well, hopefully when you reopen the resort, you know, it will be just on the menu as something very, very local and very, very super, as a superfood.
Well, we
You know,
did, well, we did produce and make our own menu, which we called forest cuisine, you know, using some of the special local things that we grow.
One
nice.
thing- Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
One thing I'd like to add about the issue for young people, because I think it really is a very important issue. And if, you know, when we get to talking about what's the point of TPC, there is people who are my vintage, some flying, some not, who have land and can't do anything with it because of age. And there's young people who don't have any land, but have lots of enthusiasm, energy, and so on and so forth. So I think one of the important structures that we could create is to list the young people who are interested in like sharecropping in New Zealand, where it's a shared venture where the older people provide the land, it's paid for, there's no debt on it, and the young people provide the energy to create the goods to sell. I don't know what it's like in Thailand, but up here in Laos, you can build pretty much anything in terms of accommodation. It doesn't have to be made of anything. So you can build accommodation for, you know, $100, $500, $1,000, and young people could start work straight away. So I would like to see us as a group make an effort in that direction of putting older landowners together with young people with enthusiasm.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good idea. And I would also like to suggest that, you know, the power of the group can also be in the area of like joint marketing, sharing, and sharing products. Because like we have surpluses of all sorts of stuff. Just saying to my staff just now, oh yeah, we've got longongs, and they're, well, yeah, we've all got longongs too. And it's not, you know, and yeah, so and we have a lot of herbs and things, you know, I actually have to pull stuff out now as the trees are getting bigger because they need more space. You know, so yeah, there's a lot that we can do, I think, you know, like as a group, in terms of like providing, you know, some people have got resources, some people have got energy, and by building up skills and expertise, more opportunities arise. And a lot of the volunteers who've been with us, they have got this dream of having their own land, and you know, and most of them are from other countries, but some of them have actually managed to succeed in doing this in their own countries.
One quick point on your issue of pension. I don't know if you're aware, in New Zealand, if you spend 5 years before you're 50 and 5 years after you're 50, you qualify for pension.
No, I don't qualify for a New Zealand pension. The fruit trees will have to be my pension.
And to follow up on this suggestion, I wonder which platform would be most suitable. We have Meetup, we have you know, Line, we have Facebook. So I don't know if anybody would suggest any other platforms to do this list of resources and, you know, list of energetic people who would like to use the resources.
Shall we just wrap up my session and maybe start a new one on the group?
Good idea.
Okay, all right. So I'll stop recording now. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you joining. And yeah, thanks.